edited all of our episodes, and I used Final Cut Pro on a laptop. Well, isn't that amazing? Do you remember us talking the other day about how lucky? Oh, we had 47 kids in here. We had 47 students in here. Was that yesterday?
Friday.
And I was telling them, you guys are so lucky to live in the period you live in. Because when I was young and I started writing music, you had to rent a recording studio. If you wanted to record music professionally, good quality, like you would hear on the radio, you had to rent a facility. And they had a giant soundboard, and they had these big 2-inch wide tape machines, and $5,000 microphones, and an engineer, and all of it. Today, you can record quality music in your bedroom on a laptop. It's unbelievable. You have cameras on your phone that will shoot better video.
Actually, 14-hour cameras.
Yeah.
You might as well call them on-top computers.
Yeah, but I mean, you could buy a DSLR that shoots as good a quality as cameras would shoot. Especially if you know how to grade. No, we used a Sony F3. But you have the technology at your fingertips to make something for pennies, or something that nobody could have made without a major studio and $1 million 50 years ago. Yeah, John?
Now, the whole film clip phenomenon would not exist now.
Yep.
Right. Because nobody shoots on film.
That's right. That's right. And you know what? That reminds me. I'm so glad you said that. We shot on videotape. Not even like digital. But it was too clean. It was too clean. It didn't look like Star Trek. So you know what the last thing we did after we finished every episode? I would edit it, and then I would send the finished edit to two people. Ralph Miller, who would proceed to clean up all the dialogue and add in all the bridge ambience and the footsteps and clicks, click, all that, everything.
Your personal Foley guy.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, he did. He had little Foley. He'd do his own walking and stuff. And I'd send 2 copies of the edit. One to Ralph to be working on the sound, not the music, the sound. And the other one would go back to Matt Busey, our director of photography. And he would do what's called color grading. What that means is you use equipment to tweak the levels of the visual. You make the blacks darker. You make the colors pop more. You make sure your flesh tones they're not too red or they're not too yellowy, or there were many times when we would shoot a scene on this bridge and there would be light flooding up over one of those walls. And as you're watching the scene, you're going, oh, that's too bright up there. It's drawing your eye. And so Matt Busey, in that final phase, would put a mask over it. You soften the edge of the mask and then just darken it. So that now the focus comes right back down here. And then the final thing Matt Busey would do, he would blur the entire episode and add film grain. The same film grain as the, whatever it was, Ektachrome, blah, blah, blah. The same film that they used to shoot the series. That's the technology we have now. You can literally buy film grain that you would layer on top of something to make it look like film. We literally had to degrade our image. I told Matt I would love to re-release them at full quality because they're actually even more like vibrant and sharp, you know. But it doesn't look like Star Trek that way. And that's what we were going for. You know, we were going for what happened if they would not have been canceled. Yes, sir.
How did you make the view screen on film?
Oh, you're a smart kid. We had always intended to build a view screen. And as you all know, they had a view screen. They didn't have digital effects back in the 60s. They built a view screen. But the only time you ever saw it was this shot, right?
Yeah.
Well, unless you're shooting this shot looking toward the view screen, you don't need it. And even more importantly, if you're shooting into the bridge, you can't have this here. Where's your film crew gonna go? Where's your sound guy gonna go? Where's the dolly gonna go? This was never here. You see how this bridge looks like it's like a pie? You see it? These are all wedges. And they all would move in and out of the studio depending on where they were shooting. If they were shooting this way, get these out of here. And the whole camera crew would set up here. And if they were shooting this way, get this out of here. But most of the time, almost all the time, your wide shots of the bridge, the shots you remember in your eye when you think of the original series, were back here. Far enough back that you could take it all in. You could see everybody. So you could shoot a master shot. You guys understand master? Master shot is basically a camera angle that captures everything that happens in the scene. All from this angle. If Spot gets up and walks down to Kirk's chair, you see it from here. If Kirk leaves and goes out to turbulence, you see it from here. You catch everything. And that master shot becomes a safety valve. So if you're editing, you're like, oh no, we don't have Spot walking down to Kirk. Yeah, you do, in your master shot. So you got yourself covered. But you can't get these shots if this is all closed in. You can't get far enough back to see the way you remember seeing. So when we first started shooting, we're like, we'll build one eventually. We'll put it on wheels, and it won't be there most of the time. But if we want to get one of those reverse shots, or if we want to get a shot of just a view screen with no people in it, which you saw all the time, there's a ship on the screen, or planet, whatever. We built one out of CGI. They had somebody build a CGI wall, and there was never anything there. This wall wasn't even there. That platform was not there. This was all wide open, so the camera crew could all set up dolly tracks, everything. Plenty of space to work around and get every angle you want. And in the back of our mind, we're like, we're going to build that someday. We'll build it someday. But the CGI view screen looked completely fine, so this was not a priority. As soon as you wrote an episode where you needed a courtroom on Starbase 11, that's the priority. We got to build that Starbase courtroom. As soon as you tell a story about Lolani, and the script calls for Lolani's guest quarters, that becomes the priority. So we never ended up building it because the computer generated one that somebody built looks just fine. And then I don't even remember what our first episode was where we shot a view screen shot where you could see this area looking over our shoulders. But we wanted to set that up, and we put a green screen up and set that shot up, and then we gave it to Mark Bell. And then not only did he have to have the view screen, but now he had to build the sections on either side of the view screen.
White Iris.
Really? White Iris was the first one?
And Kipling was sitting there and you could see behind her instead of, yeah, that was White Iris.
So that was all CGI. Question? Is that a question? Yes, Wendy. You get one even though you gave it to me.
Yeah. So what was the hardest part, like, of the sets to build? Like, out of all of this, what was the hardest part?
Engineering.
Yeah.
Mostly because everything's huge. And it's 30 feet over your head.
Yeah.
Or, I have video. I have a video of us raising the wall, the big wall in there. Now, how do you raise something like that? I mean, it's very heavy and it's huge. So what we did was we got some big long 2x4s and we notched the end of the 2x4s and then you push them up, right? But it's really heavy. So 2 or 3 of us were pushing this thing up. Other guys were trying to pull from both ends, and we got about this far, and we ran out of 2x4. Like we couldn't. And it was I was there. I was doing it. I was one of them, and I was getting scared. I was like, we can't hold this forever. What do we do? And it was getting heavier and heavier. I was like, oh my gosh, we're gonna get crushed by this stupid wall. And I don't even remember what happened. We finally got it up. And then the warp core, that thing weighed so much, and there was a floor there. There was an attic over there. And the warp core went above the floor. So we had to get up there and cut a hole out of the floor so that it was high enough. It was a monstrous undertaking. It's the biggest set in the sound stage, in the original as well. It was the biggest set. Yes.
I heard a pretty funny story regarding your CD model of the Enterprise of the exterior ship. I heard somebody that you actually tried to do it to scale the interior and it didn't look right.
Well, that wasn't us, but I heard that story too. This is fascinating. I don't know how many of you are interested in the production side of things, but a lot of people have built models of the Enterprise in a computer program. So somebody had the bright idea that he was going to build a model of the Enterprise that was 911 feet long in the computer, thinking that this is going to be perfect. So he builds this model that is 911 feet long, and he tried to set up shots where the ship would fly by or whatever, and they didn't look right, and he couldn't figure out why. He's like, how could these possibly look wrong? It's the exact size of the ship. No, it's not. The model was 11 feet 2 inches long. And when you build it at 11 feet 2 and you use the proper lenses, then it photographs the way you remember. Yes?
I just wanted to also mention that I love the different formats, references to different reference series, or like for example, the voice of the bridge,
Yes.
Michael Morgan, Michael Bridge, and then of course John Delancey.
John Delancey, oh my goodness. He was so wonderful. Yes, sir.
There's usually one thing in any production that keeps you up at night every night. What's the one thing for you?
Just one.
The greatest of them.
I don't know if I can articulate it except to say this. The fear that it wouldn't come out the way you hoped it would. You know, you can conceptualize a story. You can conceptualize a song that you want to write. How many of you draw or paint? When you start drawing, right? When you first start painting that painting, you're like, oh my gosh, I see it in my mind, but what if it doesn't come out the way I'm imagining? I think that feeling, that you conceive a story and you can feel the potential power of it, but then there are 100 ways it can go wrong. But yeah, probably more likely 1,000. So many ways that something can go wrong, and then you don't end up with what you hoped you would. So that was my biggest concern every time we would shoot and edit, all of it, that it wouldn't quite be what I saw in my mind it would be.
It seems your fears were just.
Well, let's hope that's true.
They weren't.
Yes.
What was your favorite episode to shoot?
To shoot?
Yeah.
Oh, the Civil War episode.
Yeah.
Okay, now I'm going to tell you guys a couple of things about that episode that you may not know. I'll bet you didn't know that there was a James T. Kirk who served in the Union Army.
Did not know that.
Yeah.
Get ready for your mind to be blown even further. Guess what his dad's name was? George. I would bet that's where Gene got that name. I mean, he was a big history buff. We know that. I just got chills. That's crazy. There was a James T. Kirk, and he was a lieutenant colonel, and he was with the 2nd Pennsylvania. He was a shop owner, and he volunteered to join for the cause. And there was, when we were writing the script, I was considering a different story arc. My story arc originally was, since we realized that there was really a James T. Kirk in the Civil War, I thought, let's make it where Kirk knows that there's a James T. Kirk, or somebody tells him, and so he basically disguises himself as that guy, or he tells everybody that that's who he is. We decided not to do that, but the one thing we did do was that scene in the woods when the group of Union soldiers comes across McCoy and Kirk, right? And they're like, what are you doing, this Confederate soldier, right? Remember that scene? Yeah. Where he hits McCoy and goes down the ground. Do you remember the exchange where I say something like, you lay one more hand on him, and I'll make sure your superiors know how you treated a whatever, right? And he walks up to me and he goes, who are you? And I say, Kirk, James. And he says, 2nd Pennsylvania? and Kirk looks at him like, should I go with this or not? And so I go, yes. That's right. And he goes, I thought you was a lieutenant colonel. And Kirk goes, like he doesn't know what to say. And suddenly it moves on to something else. One is, we wanted to make sure that we might tell the audience that there was actually a James Kirk in the Civil War. And then, when we were deciding the names of the characters, I had Jay Pennington, one of our wonderful volunteers down here, lives down here. I had him look up online a list of casualties of people who died at Antietam. And he sent me a list of the casualties who were killed. And there was a young boy, 19 years old, named William Palmerton. And I'm like, ooh, I like that name. Billy Palmerton. William Palmerton. And that's how that character got that name. I had spoken, I'll tell you some other fun things about that episode. Remember the old man with the beard? Guess who was originally going to play that role? Walter Koenig. I called Walter and we met for lunch in LA, and I told him the story, and I said, this is great, you're not going to be Chekhov. How cool is that? You get to play a different character. And he was pretty cool on the idea, but then he got sick, he got ill, and he called me and said, look, I'm just not up to traveling across the country and doing that. So we got that gentleman, he was amazing. Another fun thing about, and let me tell you another fun production thing about the Civil War episode. We didn't have any money. Not really to speak of. Certainly not enough to have 500 extras, and a battlefield, and horses, and cannons, and tents and campgrounds. But the beautiful thing about the Civil War is people put on Civil War reenactments all over the country. They're doing the same thing we're doing. It's just Star Trek for us, and it's a Civil War for them, right? They're obsessed with the authenticity of everything, and they put on these reenactments. Well, guess what? As luck would have it, 45 minutes up the highway, there is annually the Battle of Olusty Creek. So in February. So we shot here 3 days on set in early February. And we bumped it right up against the Olusty reenactment. And then me and Matt Busey and little Billy Palmerton drove up to Olusty with the same camera that we shot our episode and shot their reenactment. We shot footage of hundreds of soldiers, surging forward. We shot shots of the cannons firing because there was a specific shot where Kirk gets blown back by the cannon, lost his leg. So we were able to add to the production value 100 times more than we could have ever done. Another thing, even in the original series, as much as they could shoot on set, in the studio, they would. Even if it was supposed to be a planet, they had a planet set. So they could control lighting, sound, and camera angles. They didn't have to worry about telephone poles and planes flying overhead and rain or trains. We had plenty of those. So we did the same thing. All of the scenes that you see in that episode 5 in the medical tent. We built the medical tent over there. And it literally was 4 canvas flaps. And the cool thing was, if you want to shoot this way, you throw this flap up and you shoot in that way. Then you drop the flap, throw this flap up, you shoot this way. And then go back and watch the episode knowing what I'm telling you now. The problem was that in this building, and not here because it's not as bad here, but in the other side where we built it, it sounded like a gymnasium. So it looked really cool, but it did not sound like you were out on a battlefield in a medical tent. So we had to ADR every word that was spoken in that medical tent. Everything Kirk said, everything the old man said, everything McCoy said, everything Billy said was all recorded after we shot. And then when they come in and say, hey, the president's here, and Kirk gets up, when that soldier leans in through the fold and says, hey, the president's here, we had to put green screen behind him, and we had people like running by and they had trees in the background, so it looked like you were on the battlefield. And then Ralph Miller would complete the illusion by adding in cannons going off in the distance, and horses, and maybe some kind of metal clanking, and people talking in the distance, you know, create that illusion, but it was all done here. And the campfire scene. We shot the campfire scene about 10 feet outside the back door. We built the campfire, we set up tents in the background, but the beauty of that is we ran lights right out the door, and we were able to control the lighting in the campfire scene. If you're out in the woods, what are you going to do? Use flashlights? Bring in a generator? Now you've got sound problems, right? But we shot it right out there. Any other questions?
I just, as a black woman, I appreciated the whole thing with Nikia in the white iris. That it's not a thing that was white and that the color, because I know that was like a thing with Uhura and Kirk and Plato's stepchildren.
Right.
That some southern states cut the broadcasting thing. But I just, as a black woman and as a Christian, I thought that was possible. That was not an issue for her.
Oh, thank you. Well, Nakia, you guys know that Nakia Baris, who played the woman in The White Iris, that served on the ferret with years earlier, she's the Yellow Power Ranger. She's a Yellow Power Ranger, and she's a great friend, dear girl. We even used her name because we thought her name was cool. So her actual name is Nakia Baris, and her character's name in the episode was Nakia.
I just have a comment. We just recently discovered this. I mean, like 3 days, 4 days ago, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is fortuitous that you were doing this open thing
Yeah,
today.
I'd say so.
And I'm just blown away. I am so much in love with this whole thing. We haven't even seen all of the episodes yet.
Ooh.
I know. We haven't even seen it all yet. And I am
How far along are you?
Which one are we still?
Oh, that's fine. That's several episodes.
So-
Oh my gosh.
I am so
Everyone
geeked
gets
to be
better.
able to sit
Yeah.
here and talk to you and listen to you talk to everybody else, and I get to go home and watch you. And
I can't wait for you to see
your
the rest
walk.
of the episodes.
Oh my gosh! I made him rewind your walk like 4 times. I'm not even kidding. Because you walk just like it was so cool.
Hey, Bejo just watched her first full episode too, so
Yeah.
yeah, on the
It's
screen
so
with it, yeah. So
Thinking about how you're going to meet the role. Obviously, you're going to model it out. And you did. You also made it your own. Was that your intent when you made it?
It was never my intent to mock
No.
or parody Shatner in any way. I love him and I love that character.
But you portray that.
Yes, and so it was my desire to. There doesn't need to be another Kirk. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure Chris Pine's a nice kid, but Shatner's Captain Kirk, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
So when I played the role, I wanted it to be my tribute to him. But I'll tell you something. When we were getting ready to shoot our first episode, the first shot we took, go back and watch Pilgrim of Eternity, is me and Scotty coming in here. Okay? Camera was here. So you would see us walking in, Spock's in command, camera follows us down, Spock gets out, and Scotty steps in about here, and I sit in the chair. Or no, actually, Spot stayed in the chair for a minute, and I came down here, and Scotty stood here. Okay? I was standing in this turbo lift with Scotty right beside me, Chris doing. And we're standing there in these perfect uniforms, getting ready to walk onto this beautiful set. And I had the worst thought. I thought to myself, since I was this little boy's age, I wanted to do this. And now I'm doing it, and then a terror came over me. I thought, what if it's no good? What if it's bad? You know, you can fantasize about things you've always wanted to do that you know you'll never get to do, right? It's easy to fantasize. Wouldn't it be cool to, climb Mount Everest? Well, you're probably not going to do that. Or worse yet, wouldn't it be cool to like fly an X-wing and blow up TIE fighters? Yeah, that's fun to imagine. You're never going to have to do it. Wouldn't it be cool to, some really huge dream, right? And you never have to put up because it's never going to happen. So you can muse about it, you can talk about it, but suddenly you had to do it. And I was like, oh my God, what if this is not good? I love this show and Captain Kirk so much, and what if I'm bad? And Scotty, Chris Doohan, was standing right beside me feeling the same way because he was doing what his dad did 50 years ago. He was standing there looking at his tunic and thinking, I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna go to the engineering station just like my dad did 50 years ago. And we were both standing right behind these doors with the door right here, waiting for Royal to pull those ropes and these doors to open, and we'd come in. All right? And I was like, oh my God, what if it's bad? It was terrifying. It was really scary. So to hear that people enjoy it, to know that it turned out good and that people really like what we did is the greatest gift that you could give our production. Yes?
I wanted to ask a little bit about the writing, because I know you've been in other Star Trek themed productions, and I was kind of wondering, how would you compare because watching your episodes, you just nailed it. I can't even put my finger on how you managed to recapture the tone of
well, see, that's the elusive thing.
That is the elusive thing.
We were talking to somebody earlier. I'm sure Bijo and John understand, and certainly Judy does. Star Trek is about story. Star Trek is about the human condition. Star Trek is about the challenges we face, the moral questions, and the ethical quandaries, and the social issues that are just as relevant today as they were 50 years ago. That's why we still love it. Like I said yesterday in my talk, Star Trek never won any awards for special effects. It never won any awards for costumes. It's memorable because of the storytelling. Anybody can go to Lowe's and buy a bunch of wood and make a set. Anybody can get some fabric and make a costume. But trying to tell a story, trying to create and execute a story of that kind of quality, suddenly your bar is very high. If all you want to do is fight the Klingons, that's easy enough, right? But if you want to tell a compelling story that makes you think and makes you examine an important issue from different sides and different points of view, that's a big challenge. And when I decided that I wanted to do this, that was goal number one. Story, story, story. All about the story. I had 100 scripts sent to me, and they didn't have it. They just didn't have it. So I'll be honest with you, the way that we approached a lot of our stories was we would try to think of a theme or an issue. And then once you have a strong issue, think of an imaginative Star Trek sci-fi way to tell that story. Come Not Between the Dragons, this is your next episode. I don't want to ruin it for you.
Oh,
The creature episode. You did watch that.
That's the last one we saw.
Oh, you saw that one?
Yeah, that's the last one we saw.
Okay. What's that story about? What's the theme of it?
Child abuse.
Child abuse.
Absolutely.
That's a heavy issue.
Yes.
So that's where it started. Greg Dykstra had an abusive family situation. And he wrote the story, you see, where it starts with the theme. It doesn't start with Captain Kirk and phasers and beaming down. It starts with a human theme, a message, and then you extrapolate on that to try to come up with an imaginative way to present that story in a Star Trek setting. So he comes up with this creature that's this big, scary monster that turns out that he's not a scary monster at all. He's a child running from his father, who's angry and punishing. Apollo, our first episode, Pilgrim of Eternity. Here's a fun fact for you. The name of the original Apollo episode, who knows?
Who mourns Fred Aeneas?
Who mourns Fred Aeneas, right? That's a line from a poem. That line is a line from a poem. Pilgrim of Eternity is a line from the same poem. And it was perfect title for the episode. But the theme of that episode was self-sacrifice as life energy. That you actually gain life energy, and that the true source of life and joy is giving of yourself to help others. So it started with the theme, and then it built from there. All of our episodes did. And that's to me the most important part of Star Trek. The sets are just a background. They're just a backdrop to just tell the story. And like I told you guys yesterday, if the sets weren't spot on, you would forever be going, that's not right. Now, that doesn't look right. And you would be distracted from really getting the story. But if the scene fades up and you look at this, you're like, oh my God, I'm there. This is the Enterprise. I'm there. If the sets are accurate enough, then your mind accepts that you're there, and then you give us the privilege to tell you the story. Now we give you permission to tell me the story. You accept where you are. If that door were blue instead of red, you'd be going, why is that door blue? What's up with the door? Yeah. And the story is going on without you because you're looking at the door. So that's why you see some productions and some people focus all on the sets. And they make beautiful sets. The stories are weak, the acting is weak, and it doesn't matter how beautiful the sets are. I've told people many times, you build perfect sets so the audience can forget about them. And just accept that you're where you are. Any other questions? I blabbed a lot, I'm sorry. Yes, my dear.
What condition are those candies in after you've been sitting on them?
They're very warm. Wait. Still solid. Still solid. I was protecting them. I was shielding them from the light. Yes.
This is
Catch.
oh, nice catch.
Hey!
Star Trek, but
Remember, there's a quest back here.
I just have to ask you a question.
Oh, she got one anyway. Look, I gotta get rid of them anyway.
I just wanted
Here's two.
to thank you for working on.
Wait, Bijo, I'm gonna hit you sooner or later. There it is!
There we go. Almost.
Off the team.
This is horrible.
Give her the bag. There we go.
Vic is pelting Beauty and moving cockroach.
One way or the other. I'm gonna get it. Yes.
A very quick question in 27 points. Very, one quick question. You would have to talk with the studio to help you start to continue I can call my cousins, drop one meeting from New York, if we have a visit, you know, I'm making an offer that we will be able to. Just give me a name.
You know I'm Italian, right?
You're
Speaking my language.
Hey, you're a wise guy. You're one of us. You know what I'm saying?
We're paying a visit, making an offer that we'll not be able to refuse.
Anybody else? Yes.
Well, I just wanted to thank you for making Full Metal Alchemist.
Oh, yay, thank you.
I have 2 children, almost 4 years apart, brother and sister, and they related
Megan and Nathan?
Yes. They related so closely to that they would sit together and watch it
Oh, I
together, and
love
they're
that.
best friends.
I love
And I feel like they picked up from that the self-sacrifice and the willingness to sacrifice for your sibling,
Yeah.
and the love that the FMA showed them.
Oh my
They
gosh, your mom's
actually
awesome.
listened.
That was probably the favorite animated show I ever did. I loved it so much, and I get emails from people, not only from siblings that watched it together, but siblings who were brought back together. Like siblings that were estranged, and they watched it together, and it brought them back together. That's beautiful. You know what? I'm probably out of time, aren't I, Ray? I've gone way over my time, haven't I?
You know, I'm giving you special dispensation. You've got this crowd engaged. Okay?
I know it's warm. I'm sorry, guys. I wish we had the air conditioner back, but I love sharing this stuff with you. So if you'll stay, I'll stay.
Just a little more puffies for these are the voyages. I don't know if you cover in the audiobook, but it kind of puts the lie that the Star Trek was a low-rated show. It actually did very good in the
Oh, it
ratings.
sure did.
Yeah. Sometimes
Let me
won the
tell you-
night.
Oh, you know what? Let me tell you a fun fact about what you just said. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz bought the old RKO studio and started Desolate. Lucy desperately wanted some new, groundbreaking, interesting shows. Because back then it was westerns and cop shows.
Yeah.
Okay? She wanted something different. She sent her people out to find it. And she found 2 shows, Star Trek and Mission Impossible. And they were groundbreaking. However, her people told her, don't buy this show, Lucy. It'll bankrupt your studio. Think about it. If you do a cop show, you got 1,000 cop cars, contemporary clothing, city settings, cowboy show, horses, cowboy costumes, out in the ranch. A science fiction show, it's complete, it doesn't exist. Everything has to be created and built. And not only that, but every week, you're going to a new planet. You're meeting a new species of people. You've got new spaceships and special effects. You don't need special effects for cowboy shows. But Star Trek, her executives knew that this would be the most expensive show to produce ever. And Lucy did it anyway. That's why, oh my gosh, thank you. That's why, thank you. That's why people, a lot of people say Lucy is credited for Star Trek. Because she made this show against the instructions of all of her executives. And you know what happened? Sure enough, they went over budget every week. They fell behind. Every week they had to make something new. Every week the effects company had to make new special effects. And the bill was astronomical. Their budget per episode, John, do you know what they cost per episode to make back in the late 60s?
But it was a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, back then it was about $110,000, $115,000
190, I think, usually.
in the 60s.
Yeah.
You know what that is now? It's over $1 million. You know what we made our episodes for? Between 60 and 80,000. Wow, which is unheard of. Unheard of.
When Gene showed me, Joe, the Next Generation bridge sound, he said to her, what a season I could have done in 1966 for what this set cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were given a budget, and they regularly went over the budget. You can listen to the book,
Oh yeah.
listen to the audiobook, because at the end of every chapter, each chapter is an episode of the season. And at the end of every chapter, they tell you how much the budget was and how much they actually ended up spending. And that they were 2 days overdue, or 3 days overdue. One of the reasons that Ralph Sinensky was fired from finishing the directing of the Tholian Web was because he was behind schedule. And they would just like get somebody else in here who's going to get it done on schedule. Because every time you go over, every time they shot past 6 o'clock, you got to pay everybody extra. So what happened was, it was costing them so much money, and the network started changing its time slot, trying to kill it. They were trying to kill it because it just cost too much to make. So they put it in a crappy time slot, and it still did pretty well. Then they put it in a crappier time slot, and finally they put it in a time slot, and they kept cutting the budget. So it got to the point in the third season where the lighting didn't even look like the original first season, second season. And where you get episodes like The Empath, where the whole episode was on a black, completely black soundstage.
Our town.
With no sets, just pools of light. And they still made a good story. That's because the story was king, you know? They focused on the stories.
I just wanted to let you know that we're not from Little Alchemist, but we're going my friendship away.
I love that. I love that. There's no dollar value to put on it.
At first, I was just a really shy girl. I didn't really know how to talk to people, and I saw she had a Full Metal Alchemist keychain. Yes, it was a Ford Mustang, but it was still Full Metal Alchemist, and I just got into the manga, and I'm like, hey, you watch Full Metal Alchemist? And she's like, yeah, can we talk about it? And she's like, yeah, sure.
Oh, I love
and
that.
she saw me going through a lot, and she's like, this girl needs a friend. And
See, your Full Metal Alchemist was my starting point. I would go to school, and I was, back then, okay, who in here is in their mid-50s? When we were kids, you don't do sci-fi in school. It was a nerdy thing. And I wanted so desperately to represent Star Trek. I had this windbreaker. I'll never forget it. I had a navy blue windbreaker, and on the inside, I sewed the emblem, the chest emblem on the inside, so you couldn't see it from the outside. But whenever I would meet friends at school who I found out like Star Trek, I'd go, hey, guess what? and you would meet friends because of that. Yes.
I was blocked in high school because I like Star Trek.
Oh, sure.
And for my years. Yes, I was blocked for that.
Wow. Yes, sir.
How was it that Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant
Because of my voice acting work, I've had the opportunity to do a lot of signings at a lot of big Comic-Cons. And when I did these conventions, I would meet and become friends with people like Vic Mignogna, Colin Baker, Gigi Edgley, Adrian Wilkinson, a lot of our guest stars I met at Comic-Con. James Kerwin, who was one of our co-producers and directed some of the episodes, he was good friends with Nicola and Colin as well. And so we asked them if they wanted to come play Star Trek with us. And they said yes. So we got really fortunate because they were wonderful. Any other questions? Yes.
Actually, this is it's going to require me to video if you don't mind. And just a little thank to my dad to let me know that he used to get up here.
Oh, sure. This is Doug, right? This is Doug.
Yeah, all right. And I am recording.
Doug, what's up, man? How come you're not here? Look around the bridge here. We have a lot of people here, and we're all having a great time. But one thing that the Enterprise is missing is you. So you come with your son next time and give us the privilege to say hello. And get the chance to sit in this chair, my friend. All right?
Thank you.
know what he thinks of our show. People tell him about it all the time. I don't know what he thinks of it. But like I told you yesterday in my Q&A, I've had the chance to spend a lot of time with him socially. And for the first couple of years, I never even mentioned the word Star Trek to him. Because I wanted to be his friend. And 2 or 3 years into our friendship, we were at a convention in Dubai together, and we were having dinner, and his wife was there, and she asked me about her series, and I was telling her. I wasn't even telling him. I was talking to her. And he wanted to know a little bit about it, and it gave me the opportunity to tell him that I did this because I loved him, and he was a father figure to me, and that this show meant so much to me. This was all a tribute to what he and the others did back then. So I had that privilege to tell him that.
Just a quick observation. I'm not remembering all the names. One thing I found really interesting about the show was, and I didn't even know this until the later episodes. I was that much of a fool, even though I consider myself fairly knowledgeable about Star Trek. These characters had been there the character of Smith. I didn't realize that was supposed to be Smith from day one.
Yeah.
And you had the communications officer when Uhura wasn't around.
Yes.
You had
Palmer.
She was in 2 or 3 episodes. Yes, but it was all these little things that brought all these characters back, and I was like, "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." It was just
And you know, that credit goes to James Kerwin, because James is incredibly knowledgeable about all kinds of. I didn't remember. He wrote Smith into the Mirror episode, and I didn't realize there was a little joke where I say Jones or whatever, and she says Smith.
Sir.
And I didn't realize until then that it was a harkening back to the character from Where No Man Has Gone Before. And then when we brought her, she became the Esper.
Yes.
In the last sorry.
That's okay.
James was the one that remembered that she was touching Gary.
He was holding his hand when he zapped.
When he was uplifted, so to speak. So yeah, we have a lot of really, really nerdy people who just happen to be experts at what they do as well. James is a great director, and he also happens to know so much about the original series. You know, Lisa Hansel, who was our makeup supervisor, she's a great makeup artist, and she's a huge Star Trek fan. All of our people were really good at their craft, but they were also
I just thought it was just interesting the way I hesitate to use the word, but the minor characters, the people in the background that were in like 3 episodes, it's like just about you brought them all back into the series and made them essential, and you're like, okay, that's just awesome.
I'm so glad you caught that.
Lieutenant Hadley finally has a line.
Into the episodes that not a lot of people catch. So that's why you have to watch them 10 times each. Or 100 like I did with the original series. Yes, sir.
It's stories like this that we need that behind the scenes quote or
we need a documentary. We need a documentary then.
That would be cool.
Absolutely.
That would be very cool.
The making of.
Well, let's hope that people continue to discover it, and it continues to grow in people that like it, and then we could do something like that. It would be more well received. Yes.
This is a comment. I'm going to come up here because I can't keep talking.
Okay. All right.
Are you assuming command?
He's always been.
I don't recognize your authority.
Security?
You may dispute it if Zoraj was going to make you a star base, but you are relieved.
I'm just saying, if you want to help spread the word, don't just tell 1 or 2 people. Follow the power of 10. This is how we ran the Save Star Trek campaign. You write a letter and send it to 10 people, who write a letter and send it to 10 people, who write a letter and send it to. Do you know how many thousands of people we can reach in a week that way? And nowadays, you have the internet, which means you can do the power of 1,000. I mean, come on, you guys. Everybody knows at least 1,000. You may not think so. Look around. And some of us know a whole lot more. but that's it. And the people who don't pass on the information, we found, felt so guilty about it that they would contact 20 people. And so, you know, but it works. The Washington Post interviewed me and asked how this worked. I explained it in the power of 10, and the reporter said, well, that couldn't work. And I said, you may be right. You're right. Why bother with anybody that calls you a liar? Remember that too.
Yes.
Yes. Tell them to do that.
Yes.
It will work.
Yes. Share it. Yeah, the world is becoming a much smaller place.
So here's what I got from that. She's going to get a third season for Star Trek Continues.
We can give it a try.
I'll tell you, New Horizons flew past Pluto because we did that campaign.
Wow.
Because a friend at JPL called us and said they're going to cancel.
This was 20 years ago. And they said the next chance we get to get that close to Pluto is 288 years
After our
from now.
lifetimes are over.
And we've got to do it now.
So we did.
And there we go.
Well, from the experts themselves, everybody. I mean, that's. And I don't know if some of you younger people may not even understand why John and Bijo are so important. And I'll tell you, it's because when the networks wanted to cancel Star Trek, these individuals took it upon themselves. They were no different than you are. Am I right? They were no different than you.
We were just science fiction fans who wanted to see a great show continue.
And they organized this campaign, and the reason we have a third season and some of the amazing storytelling of that season is because they took it on themselves to do that.
If it hadn't had the third season, it would have never gone into syndication.
Right.
If it hadn't gone into syndication, it would have been shelved as a 2-season failure. And none of this would have happened.
You're right.
You're right. So what are your plans from here on?
I don't have any because we did what we set out to do.
It's sad though.
It is sad, believe me. It's very sad. I walk through these sets and I remember all the moments when we shot here.
So why not another season?
Well, because the powers that be have set up regulations for unlicensed productions. And unless you want to get in trouble, you have to abide by them. So for the present time, we are abiding by them. They let us finish, which I'm very grateful for.
The powers that be don't listen to the fans. That's really
Well, that's one of the difficulties too. Yeah.
Powers that be can change too.
Well, listen, from the words of Bijo Trimble, you guys, right from her mouth. Today, with email and social media, you can reach 10 times more people than they could have ever reached back then.
Can I catch up right real quick? Emails are great. So the thing with technology is everybody sees emails and they just dismiss it as junk mail or whatever. I've always wondered, they started this letter writing campaign to save the third season of Star Trek. And they were receiving thousands and thousands and thousands of letters going, keep this show on the air. They had piles of mail. My question is this: what would happen if the powers that be at CBS started receiving thousands and thousands of physical letters, pounds and pounds and piles of real physical mail on their desk demanding what we want? They can't ignore that. They can ignore an email. They can't ignore a physical letter of like 1,000 letters. So my suggestion is write letters. Tell your friends to write letters. Buy that 55-cent stamp. Put put
Wow.
it in their
Is that how the
face.
stamps are now?
You also give me the name so I can send roll call.
Put it in their face. Shove it down their throat.
That would do two things, I think. They had to hire people to open the mail. Because the rule was, use a business envelope.
Okay.
And if you had a right to use a letterhead, use it.
Okay.
Don't fake it, but use it. And the thing is that they couldn't risk having it be a business letter. So they had to open them all.
Yeah, right.
We cost them a lot of money that way. So
Thank you, Bijou.
the second rule is hit them in the pocketbook. And guess what? CBS now has something invested in Star Trek. They want to make some money off of it, but they won't if the fans say they're not going to watch it. Hit them in the pocketbook. Back then, we just told them to look up all the sponsors, including the local ones, and I did. Well, that was funny because I got a phone call from Paramount, and they said, next time you have a complaint, would you please not contact everybody to write to us? And I said, now that I know it works, no.
Yes. Thanks for letting me know it works.
Exactly.
You guys, I'm going to set up a table over here. I've got some pictures and stuff. If anyone would like to have anything signed,
You want to
just going to hang out over here.
Captain, you want to do it in the chair? You don't have to.
Accessibility might be an issue.
Really?
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Hey folks, before we leave, before he leaves, the table or the chair, on behalf of all of us here, on behalf of all the fans, I want to thank the two of you here and the rest of the team that put this together for keeping Star Trek alive. Let me hear a round of applause, please.
Let me say one thing about Ray Tessie too, you guys. The whole purpose of this open house is to help keep the place open. When we finished shooting our series, we weren't raising any more money because we weren't shooting anything. And it would have been impossible to be like, what do we do with this now? It can't be destroyed. It can't be. And so Ray, another providential thing, I believe, several people contacted me about wanting to take bits and pieces of it or buy this and transport it here. And we wanted to keep it here where we built it. So Ray came along, God sent us Ray Tessie, and all Ray wants is to keep this open for people to enjoy it. Ray doesn't care about making money. I didn't care about making money. We just wanted to pay tribute to Star Trek. And Ray knows, as I do, that there are millions of people around the world that would give anything to walk through the original Enterprise.
Yes.
So anything you guys can do to help him goes straight to paying the rent on this building. There are always physical costs. Nobody's being paid any salaries. Nobody's pocketing anything. More is coming out of the pocket than going in. So anything you guys can do to help would be so greatly appreciated. I know that Ray feels the same way.
I'm sending you some pottery money. Exactly like the American money, but it's printed upside down. Please join, become a member.
And if you can do anything for me when you go home and write 10 people, tell them to write 10 more people and send it somewhere and just let's keep going.
Absolutely.
Captain, here's
What
your
is the
cat.
goal? 1 minute?
I've got like 3
You guys sit tight 1 second. Let me grab some stuff here, and then I'll just stay in here for a while. If anybody would like to do something.